Okay, hello everyone and welcome teachers and students. We are glad you decided to join us virtually for this exciting event today with a special guest from the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, which also happens to be one of my very favorites in the world. My name is Darby Jones and I oversee educational partnerships for EF Explore America, and I am joined by my colleague, Sarah Shaven. Say hi, Sarah. Who oversees loyalty and works closely with teachers from around the country. Before I make the intro to your featured speaker of the day, Carly Mccloskey from Moma, a few quick reminders. Although we can't see you, please submit any questions and responses you might have into the Q&A feature during our time together. And Sarah will be keeping an eye on that over the course of the hour. You will now want to switch your screen onto speaker view to focus on who is talking throughout as well. So now it is a pleasure to introduce Carly. She serves as the Assistant Director in Tourism Sales and Marketing at the museum and has over 10 years of experience in these fields for major arts organizations in New York, including the Met and Broadway.com. So Carly, thank you so much for being here, and I will turn this over to you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Darby and Sarah. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all. As Darby mentioned, I can't see you and I can't hear you, but it's really so wonderful that you've all joined today. Please use that Q&A function in the chat because I would love to be able to interact with you at the end of this presentation and answer as many questions as possible. So I am going to share my screen here just for a moment, so hold tight. Great. And if you feel like seeing the full screen there, you can definitely minimize the boxes on the side. But otherwise, we'll just go ahead and jump in. What I'd like to do today is just give you a snapshot of the Museum of Modern Art of both MoMA and Moma Ps1. And then I'm going to be discussing a little later on some of the different career paths that you can have at a major art institution. I know that you might think that it's all just art history or only curatorial work that you can do here, but really it's everything from creating exhibitions to managing our social media accounts. So we'll get into a lot of that information. But first off, we are going to start with the Museum of Modern Art here in Midtown Manhattan. We've got two museums in total, so we'll start with MoMA. And the very first information I want to share with you is our history. So we started right here in Midtown Manhattan, and three incredible ladies were the reason why we were created in the very first place. So Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, Lily P. Bliss, and Mary Quinn Sullivan met up for lunch, and they decided, you know what, New York City is missing a museum dedicated solely to modern art. So they decided that they would found this museum, still here in Midtown where we are today. And their intention was really to build a collection that speaks to the art of our day, which is a mission that we still continue to carry out. We started very humbly with just 8 drawings and 1 print, and we have grown considerably since then. We now have nearly 200,000 paintings, sculptures, drawings, prints, photographs, and films in our collection. And in terms of the number of people who see us in an average year, of course, we're in a not so average year now, but in an average year, we generally see about 3 million visitors. So what's in our collection? Modern art gets a reputation of simply being squiggly lines and blank canvases, but that is not the case. Our collection starts in the 1880s. So we have these really incredible icons like Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. We have Claude Monet's Water Lilies. We have Andy Warhol's portraits, Frida Kahlo's self-portraits, and yes, a few of those squiggly lines do make their way into the collection too. But we also have some really unexpected things in the collection that you might not think of. We were the first museum in the world to have an architecture and design department. So that's why you will see things like our 1963 Jaguar E-Type Roadster in the gallery. You might find a helicopter from the 1940s hanging in our lobby, an F1 Roadster, and you might even see the very first set of emoji ever created. And performance art is also really important for us. We have one really fun object in our collection, and I'll let our chief film curator talk a little bit more about that.
Moma was privileged in 1979 to receive an actual Oscar,
contributing to the public's perception of motion pictures as an art form. Tonight, the Academy once again pays tribute to the museum's Department of Film for its continuing and growing accomplishments.
So why am I putting gloves on to hold a gold-plated statue? It's because it's an object in Moma's collection at this point, and we treat all of our archival objects with great care. The winner was Moma. Oh my God, it's Oscar. Hey man, what's up?
So performance art, like I mentioned, very important, but so is film. We actually have 3 movie theaters right here on site. So you might see a lot of really interesting things. You might not always expect performances to happen at a museum. You might not expect to see St. Vincent performing in our lobby, or Ryan Reynolds talking about Deadpool after a screening here, or Spike Lee giving a masterclass on direction. So lots of exciting things happening in our Midtown location. And moving on to Moma Ps1, this is our sister institution. It's just 2 subway stops away from us in Long Island City, Queens. And it is completely dedicated to contemporary art. In fact, it was founded in 1971. It's the first nonprofit art center in the United States dedicated solely to contemporary art. So we're really proud of this. In terms of the difference between the collections, Moma in Midtown has a permanent collection, but Moma Ps1 does not. So the star of the show here is really the temporary special exhibitions. And if people are wondering why it's called Ps1, it used to be a former school building. And all of the public school buildings in New York City are titled PS and then the number. So we retained the name as a nod to the building's former use. Now, Moma Ps1 is really a special place in New York City. Like I mentioned, it's all about the special exhibitions, but we really take care to nurture up and coming artists. It's often the first time that artists are exhibited in a major museum at Moma Ps1, and that extends into a music program as well. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's called Warm Up. And Warm Up is one of the longest running music programs housed in a museum. We're now at 20 years running now. And the aim is really to elevate some innovative, underrepresented voices. So if you're looking out for who the next Solange will be, the next Cardi B, the next Lizzo, it's very likely that you might find them on our stage. And yes, all 3 of them performed at Moma Ps1 in the past few years. So with that being said, that's the general background on the museum. It's a lot of different programs that we do. It's not just the paintings and sculpture. We have a really vibrant program in terms of events and music, concerts, educational programs. But what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about some of the different departments at the museum, because not everybody knows exactly what goes on behind the scenes. You know, we have 58 different departments across both museums, and that ranges from accounting all the way to visitor services. So you don't necessarily need that art history degree, and you don't necessarily have to be an artist to work in a museum. I myself have a journalism degree, so I can definitely speak from experience. So we'll start first with the most obvious area at museums, which is curation. And that does take up a good chunk of the employees at museums. Firstly, for us, we have 6 different departments. We have architecture and design, drawings and prints, film, media and performance, painting and sculpture, and photography. And they all fall under the umbrella of modern and contemporary art. So here I'll let you learn a little bit more from the curators themselves, and you'll get to see a little behind the scenes look at what it takes to start building out special exhibitions.
I don't think that they will be happy at the Fondation with having the Walker Evans next to the Cézanne, etc. But maybe we could keep the Walker Evans here alone on that wall and bring the hopper somewhere here.
No, I think that you mean. I mean,
Changing,
yeah. So this
having
way, the
the
hopper
keeping the small wall for the
and the Walker Evans would. Oh, on the same wall.
on the same
Oh,
wall.
okay, sure.
That works, yeah. And that works better. And you know that makes sense to have the hopper right at the beginning. That's the first work that first page.
So it's very glamorous, right? You know, we're using tiny little replicas of our works of art, and we are using styrofoam and styroboard to plot out some of these exhibitions. It gives us the flexibility to really move things around, kind of see where some walls can be installed and just move things very quickly. So you might have thought that it's a very high-tech process, but in the very beginning, it is very low-tech, very hands-on. And you'll see some more examples of this in the next clip. And I did have to throw my colleagues under the bus here just a little bit, because the first part of this clip always reminds me of the Friends episode where they're trying to move a couch upstairs. So if anyone starts yelling pivot at your screen, I'm fully with you on that.
The same process. The tide. Yeah, but hold on. You have to rest it. Okay, got it? Yep.
Put it.
What do you guys think of this idea of kind of starting over here on the left with the book-like situation in a vitrine, and then this idea that the pages are kind of floating out and around?
What's happening there? Those are the four pieces going to be on that wall.
For them, I mean, that's what we were thinking.
Yeah.
What did they call that? The microbe.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I think it's going to look beautiful. I like this better than just not having any prints on top. Like if it were to be isolated, but having the prints on top and having that, the whole thing works together.
So we're on the second floor, a former print galleries. The show's called Max Ernst Beyond Painting. It's all works from Moma's collection, but across all the departments and mediums. So beyond painting is a phrase of Ernst's, referring to the way that he worked.
One of the reasons we have such amazing holdings of Max Ernst's work is because we began to collect him very early on. The earliest works in this show were acquired for the museum in 1935, and we've sort of kept going ever since then. And that is why we're able to tell this story of this incredibly inventive artist in such a synoptic way, just by going to our storage vaults.
I don't have those even. Yeah, move that, yeah, that way.
Oh,
Yeah, a little bit to that way, to the left.
the center one?
Yeah, center one to the left. I don't know if they'll have that much space in the mat, but we're testing everything. So we'll know how to lay out the walls. You know, in some museums, you put a show, the walls are already there. And so you just work with what you've got. and you make it look as good as you can. But at MoMA, every time there's a new exhibition, we invent new walls for the most part for the special exhibitions. So in a way, it's great because you think that you've got any idea that you want to do, you can use. But when you have limitless possibilities, that's a problem too. You know, sometimes limitations are good and they help you. But right now, I'm happy that we have the chance to make them exactly the way we want to.
Does it look like plaster? It's plaster, but Anna just did some reflected FTIR analysis, and it's actually most probably oil paint. FDIR. FTIR. That's that machine over there. 4-yard. Yeah. So I think it might be better to say oil and plaster on and it's actually, I mean, it's canvas, but it's burlap. I would say burlap, maybe. Okay. It's more specific.
Ellen, was I correct in you were saying that now that you've taken the varnish off of Birds Above the Forest, that there's a real similarity between the pigments?
Or I'm just, at least visually, because we haven't done analysis on this one, but just visually, this black just feels much more similar. Like they're both this very matte velvety black. And they're very close together. So, you know, it could be a material that he's
Just has
around. So if we get more information about what the actual pigment is here, it might be interesting to compare the two.
Yeah. And had you gotten to see Birds Above the Forest without its varnish on now?
There's still a little remnant, just for a reminder. But this is how glossy the varnish was. Wow. So it's a pretty dramatic change.
So you can see here that, you know, a lot of work really goes into all of this exhibition planning, layout work, conservation work, construction work. It really all goes into that planning stage. So as we look at the curatorial planning stages that our team does, we really like to focus on everything from sight lines to when visitors walk through the galleries or look through an entrance.
Is it really this big?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this is 1-inch scale.
These look like postage stamps. They probably are. Huh?
And also, Betty, you know, we're
Early prints.
Yeah.
And then early too. So are they all mixed up though they're not?
No, so what we did was to organize them around some themes.
The theme?
So here's a bit more like family, the early years, you're moving to your house. Here you have a number of those kind of strange creatures, lions, turtle.
And then we also picked out what we thought were key works to go on. So each of the freestanding walls has one work on each side, what we thought were some of the most important works.
I mean, what I like in that floor plan, like there is not one way to see the show. You know, you have to kind of find you come here, and maybe you'll skip that at first, then you'll see that, and you'll come back. So I think that idea to create some universe and where people find their own way.
I just want to know what the limitations are.
No limitation.
Okay, the sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit.
So I love this clip so much because this is really one of the wonderful things about working at a modern art museum. There are living artists in our collection, so we often get to collaborate with them and really get to have their take on the layout of the exhibition, how things are grouped together. Even in this next short clip, you'll see Betty Saar here weighs in on the color that we put on the gallery walls.
Just to give you a sense of how it would look like. It's pretty beautiful. Would you try now with the purple on the right?
It looks great on both of them. I know.
You have to choose one. I think both can really work. But this one is kind of pretty mysterious.
That's the one you prefer, you think? Yeah?
I mean, that's what do you prefer?
I prefer it. I prefer this one.
The dark one, okay. You like that? Looks very elegant. Yeah, it has a different feeling to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like and it's really your call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that would be the entire gallery,
I think so.
you think?
So moving on, I know that you could tell that it's a really comprehensive project with Curatorial, that it moves through a number of different departments. Once we get this special exhibition up and running, a lot has to go on behind the scenes just to get the exhibition installed. But we also have to do a lot in terms of reaching potential customers. So I wanted to talk a little bit about digital media, which is a whole department that we have here on site. They run our entire moma.org website, which we almost look like as a third institution. So we have MoMA, we have Moma Ps1, and then we have MoMA Online, because we know, particularly right now, not everyone can visit our on-site museums. Not everyone can get to New York City at the moment. So having a presence online is equally as important. And our digital media team is tasked with making sure that they can meet the needs of a lot of different types of users. So for instance, with our main website, people might be buying tickets, people might be becoming a member, they might be planning a family visit, they might be an academic searching through our website for particular educational purposes. So there are a lot of different needs on our own website. And one of the newer needs as of late is our Visit Us Safely page, which I'm sure you all recognize that a lot of things have changed as of this past year. And we have to make sure that we are clearly and concisely communicating information with our users, particularly those who might be planning a visit, so that we are in compliance with all sorts of state and city mandates, but we're also staying true to our MoMA aesthetic. And that's something that we try to carry across the entire website. We also have a really incredible capsule of the museum called MoMA Through Time. It's basically a full online digital timeline of the museum from when we were founded in the 1920s by those three incredible women that I talked about at the beginning, all the way to the opening of our major expansion project in 2019. So as you scroll through, you get all of these incredible snapshots of the museum through time. You get to see when we had actual houses in the garden and cars installed in our sculpture garden. You can see when there was actually a fire on site at MoMA that destroyed one of our Monet paintings. You can actually learn about some really amazing historical moments when it comes to just moments in society that were reflected through art. You can learn all kinds of really amazing things. And so having this historical archive is also really important for us in terms of just communicating our mission and in terms of communicating our whole history to people. I highly recommend scrolling through if you have the chance. It is really comprehensive and there's lots of great video, there's audio, and it all culminates in 2019, soon to be adding 2020. Two of my favorite stories that I would be remiss to just scroll by. Lots of people know this love sculpture. Many people have posed with it in New York City. Many people recognize it with Philadelphia in particular. But that actually started because we commissioned the artist for a MoMA holiday card in the 60s. So we have a commission campaign from MoMA to thank for that iconic design. And of course, I can't go without referring to Don. Don was the museum's guard dog many, many years ago. He wasn't terribly effective, unfortunately. He became a little too friendly with visitors, so he had to be retrained, but I would love to have a Dawn these days in our galleries. I also want to note that the digital media team is responsible for a complete online publication called Magazine, which we just launched recently in the past year. It is absolutely spectacular with all types of features, and this clip will show you a little more detail about that.
You have this kind of metamorphosis going into the world of dreams.
Seems dramatic to me. Oh, I think it's great.
When something appears that shouldn't be there.
Goodness gracious.
Something very beautiful and strong.
This is something I've never noticed before, and it's pretty.
So now you are all here to hear me talk about art.
Oh my God, it's Oscar.
Okay.
So you'll see there that we said read, listen, watch. This is a full publication, and we have a full-time staff here that's running it. I mean, they're publishing almost on a daily basis. So when you're thinking about some of the other types of paths in terms of working in a career, we have IT working on our website, we have digital media working on the website, we have editors, we have videographers. So it's really wide ranging when you think about all of the different opportunities here. So, you know, all those content creators out there, if you're making things on Snapchat and you're creating things on TikTok, please keep it up. These are actually transferable skills if you are interested in this particular area of working at a museum. And speaking of on-site and offline type of activities, I want to talk a little bit about our retail sector of the museum. The Moma Design Store a lot of people might think of museums as sort of just having, you know, the odd postcard and the magnet that you can pick up on your way out. But our retail team really thinks incredibly thoughtfully about how they're presenting products in our store. Like I mentioned before, we were the first architecture and design department in a museum in the world. So it's really important to us. So everything that ends up in our store, from that postcard all the way up to a high-end item, is actually vetted by a curatorial team. So you know you are leaving MoMA with a really high quality item. And with us being a nonprofit, every single purchase that happens in our stores goes to benefit all of our programs, all of our exhibitions, and the overall ongoing nature of the museum itself. So it's a really important revenue stream, but it's a really exciting part of the museum in terms of career opportunities, because we have a team of about 12 buyers who get to travel the world globally and find the best of the best. They find those unique products, those innovative products that you can't find anywhere else, that are very rare, that exemplify the best in design. So you might see anything from an Air Force One custom collaboration in our stores to an avocado tree vase. It's quite wide ranging. I talked with one of my colleagues who works on these collaborations with Nike and Champion, Vans and Sony, Uniqlo, and on and on. Their main recommendation in terms of interest in product buying and product development, when it comes to traveling a lot, bilingual skills are very important. Being able to ride a bike, they said, gets them around the Scandinavian countries in particular. So super helpful on that side. But our team really does a lot of work. It's not just as easy as it looks. They're going to design trade shows. They're meeting with artists and designers to actually create new pieces. They're navigating crowdfunding websites and social media, so they're always on the hunt for the next big thing. And they also are working on expanding our footprints in a number of different countries. We have a few stores outside of New York City, in Osaka and Tokyo. And recently we added a new store in Hong Kong as well. So not only does that help us in terms of revenue streams, it also helps with the extension of our overall brand. Which brings me nicely to our marketing. With all of these great programs, with all of these great products, with all of the incredible exhibitions we have on site, it means nothing if people don't come to visit. And right now it's a particularly challenging time, of course, because we know that people cannot visit as freely as they once did. Moma in particular relied on about 64% of our overall visitors coming from the tourist sphere. And that's what I specifically work on. So a lot of the work that I do is specifically for tourism marketing. I very much like our retail team, am lucky to travel the world and meet with companies who are working on travel, whether it be specifically to New York City or a multi-city trip to the United States. Again, obviously there are some complications with that at the moment, so travel is on hold, but building these partnerships is still a really important component of what we do from the marketing side. We also attend a number of trade shows, so we do our due diligence to make sure that MoMA is top of mind for people who are pitching and selling New York City as a destination. And we also market quite differently. So while I'm specifically focusing on tourists, I may be spreading information that's a little bit more broad, a little more general, a little more informationally based. So making sure we have things like brochures out there so people know exactly where we're located and what our hours are, what some of the highlights are in our collection. That's really important. Some of our general marketing efforts might show that we're really wanting to focus on families during a particular corridor. So a geo-targeted ad for New York City and the tri-state area might start to appear in your Instagram feed if you are a family, and you might start to see some ads like this. So it's very much targeting based on your needs and your behaviors. We also really target our international audiences. So if you're a Brazilian, we know that you like to shop. We know that you like our Tarsila here over on the left side. If you're a Chinese audience coming in, you might be with a group. We know that that resonates really nicely with our post-impressionist work. For our Koreans, we know that Bong Joon-ho and the cast of Parasite might be a big draw for them. And of course, I would be remiss to not shout out the biggest boy band on the planet, giving us a shout out on primetime TV.
Yeah, that's how you shop. I love MoMA Museum.
We will always take that. We will always take a free shout out. So thank you very much to BTS. And that is a perfect transition into social media, because we definitely have to make sure that we are of this moment. Modern art in particular is something that speaks to our time. It speaks to our own experiences that we're going through. And we do not operate in a bubble. We don't operate in a vacuum. So everything that we're doing is responsive and reflexive to what we're going through. So we have to keep an eye on things like a shout out on Jimmy Fallon's show. We have to make sure that we're monitoring the conversations both on site, but also very much on social media too. And particularly at this moment when we see people who, again, can't necessarily make it to the museum, this is a super important time to be able to interact and engage with people. And we are across a number of different platforms. So we do have a presence on Facebook, of course. We have about 2.1 million followers on Facebook, but it does skew a bit to the older side, which shouldn't surprise any of the students on the call. We do find that the information that we share on Facebook tends to perform better when it's a bit more event and programmatically based versus some of the other platforms. So something like Twitter, we might focus more on some information that is based on questions that we're receiving. It's a bit more of a back and forth with our follow base there, which is, as of last check before this presentation, is at 5.3 million followers. So very much a full-time job keeping track of that. And then my favorite platform that we use is Instagram, because being a museum, it just lends itself to being so visually impactful. We have just over 5.2 million visitors on followers, on Instagram. And we really do lean into the visual content here. And particularly, we find that Instagram stories is something that we like to experiment with. We know that we can focus a little bit more on programmatic things like what's coming up this week in a particular Instagram story. So everyone has a nice recap of what they can access this week and what's going on. Or we can get really in depth with a particular work of art or an exhibition where we can really drill in on a particular piece, share more information about that, provide some more insight from our curators, from artists that we work with, gives us a sense of being able to really dig into a particular work and share that with our audience. And I would also mention, outside of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course YouTube, we also have a presence on two of the leading Asian social media platforms, which are Weibo and Wechat. We are on both of these, and we have a fairly strong presence on them. The reason why we are on these separate platforms is because our Chinese audiences aren't able to access Facebook. They're not able to access Twitter or YouTube or Instagram. So all of that great content that we're sharing and we're connecting with all of these amazing audiences, we're not able to do that with the Chinese audience unless we were on these platforms. So it's really important to us to make sure that we can still engage and connect with as many of our international audiences as we possibly can. There on the left side, we were celebrating the Year of Pig. So it can be quite fun too. That's the nice thing about social media. There's a bit of lightness to it at times when appropriate. And it's really a nice way to have an open line of communication between museums. So I want to share just one more video clip here just to wrap up all of these threads. What you're going to see here is the culmination of years of hard work. This last video shows the final push when we were opening the museum after our expansion project. You'll see that we closed our doors for 4 months between the finish of the project and the reopening. We took literally every single work of art off the wall. We reinstalled the entire collection, debuted new special exhibitions. We relaunched our website with the help of our incredible digital media team. We came up with a comprehensive marketing plan across the board for both our tourists and for our locals. We came up with an incredible social media campaign to keep people along with us during the closure. And this video is a part of that. So I will share. There we go.
We're going to start with the rotor blades. Oh my God.
Nice.
Did you see the dome? Look. Wow.
All right. I think a legit 14 is okay. I mean, I'm fine.
Let's get the gloss out.
This piece here is considered the most famous Picasso in the entire world.
The thing about framings is that we don't always know that the artist actually put the art in the frame or actually even saw the frame. In the case of Van Gogh, you know, he has his brother put the frames on, and then he talked about the kind of things that he liked. And one of the things that he said he liked was a black frame. This is from the letters between his brother and him. And he did have kind of strong opinions about framing, which is good for us. Yeah, on the right, on this side, you can see light. So you need to come up on this side.
Lots of my respect for my colleagues for handling this priceless piece.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. As you know, they're being picked up at 1 o'clock to go to the floor.
I remember like picking 100 works and saying to all the people I was working with, I want the works to be on a kind of bleachers, so that the works are like the figures, so that you, as the person who's looking, is being looked back at by a crowd. I want a crowd of artworks on a kind of literal like stadium seating. And then Amy Kiefer, who's the amazing designer, was the one who figured out the angles where the things lower, so that you didn't have to go like this. The lower things were at this angle, the things in the middle were at this angle, and the things at the top were at this angle. And that was genius, because then these works move from your feet, which is the most important part of your body, in my opinion, to up the wall, rather than sort of having ascended a lit and being sort of suspended there forever, and then creating this gulf between you and it.
Fabulous. Okay, so right back where it was? Yeah, I think maybe a shade cooler? Yeah. It's nice. I'm just worried nobody's gonna be able to see the daguerreotype. Is there a way of making this wall more targeted that would make it?
Yeah, if we do more of a spot.
So this is a wall wash. It's just a 3-foot candle wall wash.
Well, yeah, but it looks so good.
Yeah.
Right?
I want these things to glow. I mean, I want them to be safe, but I want them to glow.
9.
Shucks.
8, 10, 8, 7.5, 7, 6, 6, 5, 8.
5, 8?
Can you go down a little bit more? That's 4, 7.
Okay, and that gives us what for this?
5.5.
Magic number.
Okay, so we're still missing.
They're coming up after lunch.
They're coming up. The frame is finished now?
The two Picassos are coming in after lunch.
Okay, and then I guess we'll just have to look at the Stella. But I think, yeah, we're almost. I know our punch list meeting this evening is going to be much smaller as we go through the list.
It's a one-pager.
One-pager, oh yeah. Yeah, good luck with that.
I know.
It was not quite one page, we're getting there. We're getting there.
I like that. Who did that, I wonder? Oh, yeah. There's a big mural. Yeah, we were just planning that. It is good looking. I'll say that.
What do you think?
Looks good.
I think so too.
Looks good.
Should we just do it? Should we try? All right.
You're doing the rotor.
Ellen's gonna do the rotor. All right, here we go. I did.
Oh, look at that. Oh, 6 is misbehaving like it always does. Okay. It cut the last one, right? Okay. This one didn't. Please be good. Please be good. You can do it. Come on. If it was a software problem, it would be for all of them. So it has to be like hardware related, right? Okay.
That does say it's raining tickets.
Starts off wrong already.
For those
Oh,
wondering.
that one too? And it's not the paper stock either, right? Like you've swapped the paper stock of this one with another one. They should all aspire to be more like P7.
And they were all recycled. Don't worry.
We're not open just yet, but Good morning, welcome back. Good morning, welcome.
Hey, Chet, how are you? Okay, great, great.
The closure was very, what's the right word? It was surreal. Without people here, it kind of loses its, the people create the energy in here. I really like this room, the way it's set up, the way it's kind of salon style. This room feels really good. But you know I'm taking you. Oh, it's back. It was hard not to have it this summer because there was a lot of work in here. So it wasn't enough. But I'm happy it's back. I think the seats feel like lily pads too. Yeah, it's just still gonna be the zone to decompress. But yeah, so we had to come here.
So I hope that was helpful to you all. I just want to reiterate, I think that video really nicely expresses all of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes, from the curatorial side all the way to the frontline staff. We are all on board here with the one goal of making sure that our collection is accessible to as many people as possible. And like my great colleague Chet said there at the end, it doesn't feel right to not have people in our galleries. So we are so pleased that we are back open and operating again, albeit under very different circumstances. But it is a testament to the whole team here from across the board, front of house, back of house, of how intricate it is to keep an operation like this running. I hope I shared a few different options for entry into work in the art industry. There are so many more that I didn't even touch on. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. If there's anything that you think of after this presentation, I'm also happy to field questions. But I'll open it back up now. I think the EF team may be facilitating some of the questions here at the end.
Yeah, hey Carly. So a couple of questions came in before we started the session. So I was hoping you could help answer those. One of them was about college. I mean, we talked about a few different, or we saw examples of a few different roles that people can play within this industry and at a museum, but curious about what types of college programs are a good introduction to jobs like these and starting on that path.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you to whoever submitted that. We in particular, it's hard to pin down a particular path because there are so many different entry points. If you are looking more for the curatorial side of things, then certainly you do need to go down the road of an art history type of style of study. Most of our team, they have at least BAs, but they also have MAs and they go on to PhDs if you go into elevated levels of curatorialship. But when it comes to things like IT or digital media, entry points are very different. For myself in particular, I can speak to having a journalism degree, but choosing a journalism degree because I knew that it had a broad range of skills that could be applied to it. I knew that advertising, marketing, communications, editorial work could all fall under that. So when I think of career paths or choosing a particular area of study, I think about choosing something that can be broadly applicable, something that can be expansive, that can flex and to a number of different uses.
Great, thank you. Another question that's similar in a way, but also different. I feel like post school and as you're navigating even through college, you start to think about gathering experience in certain fields and relevant experience. And do you have any recommendations for ways that students can get involved either through volunteer work or internships that will give them relevant experience in these fields so they can kind of start building on those skills and have a bit of a resume as they start to get towards, post-college careers?
Definitely. There are a lot of programs at art museums in particular. I can only speak for museums here because each company is different, but for art museums in particular, there are a lot of programs that are geared toward younger people. So I always recommend at least checking out some of those programs on their own, just to get a feel for the institution, to get a feel for the type of programming that is out there in the world, to see if you feel like this is a good fit, to see if you have some ideas on how to make it better or see what they might not be doing very well. So you can start to form your own opinions there. There are volunteer opportunities, of course, and there are also paid internship opportunities, and those are particularly specific to each department. So I would recommend just really focusing in on what you think would be of interest to you in those particular areas. MoMA in particular only has paid internships. So I also recommend making sure that you're just aware of the internship and everything that it outlines too, because an unpaid internship is not always ideal for everyone. It's not particularly accessible for everyone. So I would recommend just making sure that you're fully aware of everything that it entails, the time commitments, if it is paid or unpaid. And if it's not, then you can certainly look into some of those programs. Like I mentioned, a lot of them are often free or reduced price. So it will at least give you some entry points into the museum. You can start to build some relationships that way with the people who are running the programs. So even if you aren't able to secure an internship, there are some other ways that you can put your foot in the door.
Great. For MoMA specifically, actually, how competitive, or would you say, the job market is there in terms of like people getting their foot in the door at a place like that?
That's a really great question. It is pretty competitive. I don't want to sugarcoat it. MoMA is one of the leading museums in the world. So whenever there is a job opportunity or a job opening, there are a lot of applicants. So I do recommend just building out, if you're just getting started, really building out a lot of your other skills. We work with teams who are really well-rounded. We've recently looked at some resumes where people had poetry experience, they had editing experience, things that are transferable skills. Again, that could really help out in an overall team. Those are things that aren't necessarily marketing specific, but they're things that could help us with copy creation and with ad direction. So we like to look at things holistically. So even if you don't have the experience that is to the letter what we're looking for a particular job, make sure that you highlight those things that make you unique, the different backgrounds that you're bringing, the different perspectives that you're bringing, because that's really important to us.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so important to bring different elements to a team and set yourself apart. Perfect. Unless there are any other questions on my eye on the Q&A, I want to say thank you to you, Carly, and to MoMA, and for sharing all that you did. It's so incredible of the work that happens behind the scenes, and sometimes it's surprising to see how much actually goes into it, and things that we don't necessarily think of or realize happen to make it all come together. So really, really appreciate it. And for those of you who are on the call, our teachers and our students, send us questions if you have any additional follow-up. We'll send out some resources as well, so you can stay connected with MoMA until we can get back there. And then I'll also ask that you just stick around when we end the meeting. There'll be just a quick survey when we wrap up that'll pop right up, and it's just a couple questions long, and we'd really appreciate your feedback so we can continue to offer opportunities like this and improve and engage. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thanks, Carly. Thanks, Darby.
Thanks, Carly. Thanks, everyone, for joining. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.